Hello, Tashtileg everyone. Tibettv will be hosting researchers from Tibet Policy Institute to talk about their research work over the years. And as part of this program, today I have with me Mr. Tenzin Dala, who is a researcher at TPI, and I'm going to talk with him about his research work on China's censorship and Tibetan activism on social media. Mr. Dala has actually spent close to 2 years on this research work. And in that research work, he basically tried to find out how China censors online media contents and how Tibetan activism takes to social media to advance the cause of Tibet. So I have with me Mr. Tenzin Dala. Dala Tashle.
Hello. With profound reverence, I would like to thank Tibet Online TV for giving this opportunity.
Okay, Dala, before we actually begin the program, I wanted to give the viewer a sense of how the social media has come to the main stage and also the kind of impact it has created on a global scale. So can you briefly talk about the rise of social media and what impact it has created on a global scale over the last few years?
Yes, allow me to give a brief introduction of the global impacts. Well, the contemporary period has come to invariably known as age of information, cyber networking age. In this social media or base age, we can create our own identity, live vicariously through the lives we generate on these platforms. There has been tremendous rise in the growth of online social networking in recent times. For instance, Facebook has celebrated its 13-year anniversary recently with 2 billion active users around the world, which it shows that 2/7 of humanity is connected to a single portal. That has given us enough reason not to manipulate information what we create and share online. Regarding the global impacts, let me give some evidence regarding the train crash and Wanzhou incidents in 2011, a southern Chinese city. At that time, 2 fast trains has been crushed, but Chinese government wanted to bury up the story. They want completely cover up the story, but it has prompted a huge backlash within Chinese netizens. They began to raise their voice on social media platforms like Weibo and WeChat. And as a result, Chinese government allowed them 5-day free censorship, so they are free to write anything on social media platforms. It has circulated more than 1 million messages within 5 days. So, as a consequence, the railway minister was put 10 years in prison. And if you go back to the Arab Spring, very well known by many of us, a single vandal whose dissatisfaction was not addressed by a local government. As a result, he self-immolated himself, and it has brought up a huge protest inside Tunisia as well as in the Arab. But so at that time, social media helps to long run the course of the Arab. And recently, Umbrella Revolution in 2014, a region officially ruled by China. Many students and activists comes on the street to shout for the greater freedom. At that time, Chinese government wanted to censor all the social media platforms. In Twitter itself, there are more than 1.3 billion messages between September 26 to 30. And later, Instagram, Twitter, all are blocked by Chinese government. It is a displeasure for Chinese government sending all those messages across the world. But it has globally get a lot of attentions. These all are kind of impacts that social media has created.
Okay, then Dalala, coming to the Chinese censorship in China and basically occupied Tibet. Actually, we all know the censorship that is being taken place in China and areas under the control of China. And in fact, I'm sure you know better about this censorship and the kind of restrictions placed on social media. So can you give us a sense of how widespread the censorship is and also the restrictions being placed on social media platforms in China and places like Chinese occupied Tibet?
Of course, Chinese has one of the most rigid and dynamic and sophisticated censorship around the world. The censorship is kind of well known by globally. They restricted foreign well-established social medias inside China. They're completely banned. We can't access Facebook, Google, Twitter, and all. Instead of that, they created their own copycat platforms. Inside China, the human rights activists, politicians, and many are banned to use those platforms. It shows that they're, instead of regulating the details of the censorship, they're giving so much specific on censor. For example, they created a new people called 50 Cent Army. There are more than 500,000 to 2 million 50 Cent armies. They're propagandaists. They want to safeguard the prestige of CCP. Always they comments which are favorable for Chinese government. If something is not favorable to the Chinese government, they try to write different things on social media platforms and try to steer the society into different part by expressing their views differently.
Okay, so Dalal, actually the Chinese government maintains that the kind of censorship that they use is basically to maintain what they call social stability, right? So you as a researcher, how much truth does this claim holds?
Maintaining social stability is one thing. Apart from that, they are not really doing the things what they said. They are doing too much restrictions. They are cracking down the human rights defenders. And for recent example, Tashi Wangju, a language rights Tibetan activist, he was put behind bar for expressing his right. These all are kind of wrong things, right? In China, they are suppressing the human rights defenders, activists who want to speak up about their views openly. This is kind of restrictions happening inside China. So it is not correct to say that they are defending. Social stability means there are lots of people who want to express freely, right? The freedom has been restricting to themselves. It's a completely against their rights, right? So I don't think so. They are regulating.
You're basically saying that their claim of maintaining social stability is actually not the right thing.
Not the right thing, yeah. It's kind of a lame excuse because they want to ban the international social networks inside China. So they need a reason. So they are making some reasons behind there.
Okay, Dalal, coming to the Tibetan activism on social media, we all know WeChat is one of the what we call the micro messaging app that is widely popular both inside and outside Tibet, right? In fact, it's very convenient mode of communication, if I may say so. But we also know that there are also security concerns using apps like WeChat. So what you as a researcher have to say about the security concerns of using social media platforms like WeChat?
From my point of view, what I think is that WeChat is not completely safe because the server is located in China. Whatever message we write, it bypasses through the server which is located in Shanghai in China. So they do data mining and they do censorships, right? So they can't censor everything's details because Liu Wai, Chinese cybersecurity expert, he says that each day 30 billion messages were in transactions. If they do like
WeChat,
WeChat 30 million message, so they can't censor everything details, right? But I'm sure they're making a target group and they're filtering the words like Dalai Lama, Free Tibet. These kind of words are strictly prohibited by them. These are all the kind of things they are doing on WeChat. But on the other side, WeChat is connecting, bonding and bridging the communication gap between Tibetan inside and outside. Nowadays, whatever the protest happens, it is not a local. A single click of mouse can address a global audience. So the communication itself becomes very convenient, less time consuming, and informations become more decentralized.
Okay, Dala, generally speaking, we know about the activism that takes place on social media by Tibetans around the world. And you as a researcher, how do you observe the Tibetan activism that takes place on the social media?
nowadays Tibetan in exile and inside Tibet, they're embarrassing through social media whatever the cause, for example, environmental issues, political or socially, whatever happens, they directly address through social media platforms. They are getting more awareness about the things what going inside Tibet and outside because of the interaction between two. So if I give some examples, inside our exile there are lots of Tibetan NGOs. They are becoming very much aware in social media activisms. For example, they use Facebook to separate their informations, Twitter to relay informations, and to tell the stories to the world as a YouTube channel. These are kind of the mediums that they express the situation of Tibet to the greater audience. It is getting a huge impact. Nowadays also Tibetan youngsters, especially in abroad, they are getting more aware of the Tibetan cause and Tibetan struggles because they are constant followers inside WeChat as well as YouTube and Facebook, and many use Twitter to know the information details. So these all are kind of things that they are getting inside very deep, because many of us are not aware of the things, right? We neglect the things, we hardly read the newspaper these days because everything has been digitalized. Nowadays new media has converted the things more convenient. So we are giving more time for that, and it has helped us to getting more awareness to the issue. That is kind of the things what I observed so far.
So if you are to summarize about Tibetan activism on social media, what would you say? Is it going in the right direction, or you feel there are things that needs to be improved or things that needs to be looked into in order to make the social media activism more effective?
So far, what I've observed is many of the Tibetans who are in social media platforms are not going exact directions. There are lots of 50-cent armies behind, making lots of allegations, making discriminatory comments.
What do they actually do? You're talking about this 50-cent, paid agents.
Yes.
What do they exactly do?
They are just manipulating the things, and they are safeguarding the prestige of Chinese CCP. And they just pick up the favorable comments for them, and they just try to state the societies by making lots of baseless allegations with a fake profile and fake IDs. But many of us are not taking it very seriously. If you go through those social media platforms, we can see the comments, right? Some of the comments are nameless and there is no any proper ID, but still we used to write them back. Yeah, we respond their comments. If you keep left them as a irresponsive like that, then it won't create any problems, right? So we are seriously taking the issues more concerned. It has created more disordered feelings among Tibetans and hatred feelings. It will divide our struggles rather than unite. If we wisely use those social media platforms by taking the advantage of thinking those advantage in details, then it will unite a Tibetan into more cohesive society.
So you're basically saying that these comments made by these fake IDs should be left.
Yes,
they shouldn't respond to these kind of comments, right?
Yes.
So final comments you have about today's topic.
The scattered Tibetan community by global village and audience into a more unified, if we properly use those social media platforms, right? So whatever we do, we have our own responsibility on our shoulder. We need to share Tibetan stories as much as we can. We can like the things, but whatever we do, we need to precisely think before we act, think before we click. That is the thing that I want to say. On the other side, some of our users who made 2 or 3 profiles, but they didn't use to close the other one if they create a new one. But there is lots of possibility of cyber threat using the profile by some other person. So this will create lots of chaos, lots of problems later. So we need aware and we need more security concerns. There are lots of security threat to address on social medias. So whatever incidents or whatever happens, we can learn from them, right? Otherwise, if we keep on following the things by misconception, it is completely not good for our struggle. That is the thing I want to emphasize more on my research and to tell more on my audience. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dala. With this, we come to the end of our program, and we discussed about Mr. Tenzin Dala, who is a researcher at the Tibet Policy Institute, and his work on Chinese censorship and Tibetan activism on social media. Thank you, Dalala.
Thank you so much, Toche.